Working. Thank you, Leonie, for a very, very nice introduction. Sorry for my German is not good. Only say good Abend. Okay, everything is working. Okay, now good evening in English. Now, this topic of intimate relationships with humanoid robots, this is a very emotional topic, isn't it? It is a topic that have captured a lot of people's imagination, and certainly mine. I only started to research in this entire area of human-robot intimate relationships since 2017, when I was a guest scientist attached to Potsdam University. And before that, I worked for many years, as Leonie introduced, and I worked in healthcare communication. I have a PhD in intercultural communication. And people ask me, why this shift? What interests you? And, Yeah, I'm not very tall. Okay, people ask me what, fascinated you and what is your motivation? And I would say my motivation comes from a combination of my childhood fascination for wonders and my scientific curiosity. And I firmly believe as a scientist, science has a very important role to play in understanding this emerging topic. So, some of you might have been noticed this entire topic of sexual applications of artificial intelligence has only recently started to become a mainstream research topic. So therefore, considering both the breadth or the depth of this line of work, it is still very, very limited at this stage. So for this reason, we still cannot answer, or I would say we are still not yet in the best position to answer a lot of fundamental questions surrounding this topic. For example, what is the nature of this relationship? What are the likely consequences of this new sexual experience is going to bring to us individuals and to our society? So I was thinking perhaps my talk today, I would like to guide you through my journey so far to trying to seek answers to two questions. First is, are they ready? Are robots ready technologically to be our intimate partners? And secondly, then are we humans ready to accept this first, to accept the idea, and then perhaps to engage in robot sex? So this is my plan. Okay, so here is me with the world's first, supposedly, male sex robot called Henry. So I was quite lucky. Anyway. Okay, so this is the overview of my talk today. So in addressing the first question, are they ready? I will first draw attention to a gap in the expected capabilities of sex robot from, say, the perspectives of the scientist and the perspectives of the general public, and then give you a very sort of quick overview of the technological development in a sex robot, and topped up with my own experience. And finally, I want to highlight some key issues and challenges in this area. This is the first topic. And the second topic, are we ready? I will first give you some evidences from survey studies, from experimental studies, and I also want to talk about changes in people's sexual attitude and how attitude could predict changes in people's behavior. So that's my second section. And then if time really allows, and I do want to highlight some, possible clinical implications because this interests people a lot. So I will talk about around these two questions. Could a sex robot help with sexual healing and therapy? And would a sex robot be used as a tool to help reduce incidences of child sexual abuse? So received a lot of attention for these two questions. And finally, I do want to highlight the importance of a transdisciplinary scientific approach in understanding this emerging topic. Okay, let's start. First one, are robots ready to be our intimate partners? So, These photo images of various robots, I would say from industrial robots to service robots, maybe more recent to social robots, have only reminded us that robots actually, they are already been our great partners at various aspects of our life for some time. However, the gap, or what to say, it's not gap, the leap, the giant leap from being our great workmates, they help improve our work productivity, to our social companions, they help enhance our psychological well-being, to eventually be our intimate partners that can offer love or even sexual satisfaction. This giant leap would be very much dependent on progress in artificial intelligence. So, we'll start from here. I'm not going to give you a comprehensive review in AI research and development in the last 50 or 60 years' time, but I'm going to highlight some key events in AI history. AI is a term, artificial intelligence. The term was coined by John McCarthy, pictures here, and commonly regarded as father of AI, in 1955. And then in 1956, at the World First International Congress on Artificial Intelligence, and the scientists gathered together, started to explore ways to develop intelligent machines that can think, that can reason, just like humans. And then a little over maybe 40 years later, and you perhaps know this event, IBM's Deep Blue, and defeated the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov. And then another maybe 10, 15 years along the line, Watson, the world's smartest machine at that time, also defeated the two Jeopardy champions. And I would say it only took about a little more than half a century for machines to not only to keep up with, but also to outperform some of the greatest human minds at that time. I'm not going to give a lot of detail to all of these development in robotics. And let's go straight to the more recent examples. That's me with Pepper. You might have heard of Pepper. It's a semi-humanoid robot developed by the SoftBank Robotics. Pepper can not only read your emotion, can also express emotions. And also Sophia, some of you might have heard of from social media. Sophia is made by the Hanson Robotics, and it is said that she can make more than 50 facial expressions. She has also a human citizenship from Saudi Arabia. So that was quite amazing. So I guess what I'm illustrating here is that the speed, the level of speed of AI research and development is really remarkable. And I do believe that having robots to take the role of partnership in relationships with our human beings is only a natural continuation in the trend of robotics development that have already surpassed many stages, from industrial robots, from service robots to social robots. At this stage, I have not talked about sex robots at all yet, but nowadays, if you just enter a sex robot, the term, into any search engine, you will be, bombarded with all sorts of information. For example, will be striking anecdotes of intelligent sex dolls, or much touted examples like arrival of sex robots, and a lot of discussions, heated discussions about the pros and the cons of introducing sex robots into our human relationships. So here are just some of the books or, consultation reports that I am aware of. I will put in here, including the last one that I'm co-editing with Professor Fisher, Leona introduced, that we are working on a book on the latest development in human-robot intimate relationships, coming soon in August. And this topic obviously attracted a lot of attention, not just from general public, you will see a lot of people today here, but also from academic community. I have to say, I do believe, or I'm quite confident with this level of how to say, this amount of attention or this level of speed in AI research development that I talked about before. Humanoid robots will be able to accomplish all the tasks that are what I believe of both the mind and of the body, that a human lover or human sex partner will be able to accomplish. I hope that will be in the foreseeable future. So my point here I want to make is perhaps we should not say the question is not about whether they will be ready. The question probably should be when they should be ready. So let's ask this question instead. Is the current technology or the near future technology, say the next 10, 15 years' time, ready to simulate genuine loving or sexual interactions between humans and intelligent machines? So I believe the answer to this question would be very much dependent on what exactly we humans expect these future social robots to do. I say social robots because sex robots are in the category of social robots. Generally speaking, they are developed to interact with us socially, to follow some kind of social behavior, social rules. So let's see. So already in 2003, scientists suggested that in order for social robots to interact with us in a more successful manner, and those social robots need to be able to display a set of human social characteristics. Specifically, they have to be able to express emotions, to be able to perceive emotions, and also engage in high-level quality communication. And also, they should be able to provide natural communication cues. For example, they can make some gestures when I'm doing this talk, or maintain some eye contact if it is necessary. And also to learn social skills, maintain social relationships, and have some kind of personality. So quite a long list. And I believe, I think, some of these socially intelligent properties have already successfully, to some extent, be incorporated in robotics development in the last maybe 10, 15 years' time. However, in order for scientists, for robotics to incorporate all of these social skills or social intelligence for the robotics design or development, I think it might take another 10 or 15 years' time. Even it is a case by that time, we are still not quite sure whether these social skills or social intelligence will be enough to sustain intimate relations. So it's quite a challenging topic. So now I wanted to look at expectations from the general public. Okay, so in the event of, let's say, in the case of sex robots, Schultz and Arnold, and they are the researchers from American, they conducted a number of survey studies, and they asked people's views on expected capability of sex robots. So they basically, in the two studies, they asked about 298 participants recruited from internet platform called Amazon Mechanical Turk, and they asked them to rate on 14 expected capabilities of sex robots. For example, whether robots should be able to speak or to have emotions, or whether they can just follow people's, our guidance, take our orders. So, interestingly, the results was those listed very high on scientists' social intelligence that I talked before were rated very low. So I'm going to show you. These are the three least attractive capabilities rated by these people. So can take initiative, recognize human emotions, has feelings, were rated the top, the three least attractive capabilities. And in contrast, specially designed to satisfy human sexual desire, moves by itself, can be instructed or obey orders, are rated as the top most attractive capabilities for sex robot. Now, if we leave aside any possible limitations, for example, the sample representativeness or probably the methodological issues, if we leave aside any of these limitations relating to these pioneering study, these findings do seem to suggest that people like you, general public, from general audience, they at this stage they do still tend to think sex robots more as a kind of objects that can be controlled by humans, and less as a kind of autonomous beings that can have their own emotions and they can take initiatives. And I would say that is also a gap, a considerable gap in the expected capabilities of sex robots and social robots from the views of the scientists that I talked before and the views of the general public. So this is one study. And now I'm going to show you some examples of sex robots, because I want to illustrate to you the current technological advances in the development of sex robots. But sex robots, remember, fully functioning sex robots do not exist yet. I just take some example from Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, sex robots at the moment are only hypothetical, anthropomorphic robot sex dolls. As of 2018, of course, still at this stage, you will see, I'll give you some example, they still cannot do a lot of things as you would think. Now, they also say Harmony. Some of you might have heard of Harmony. This is one made by the Robotics. I will give you a little bit more information later. This is the one they said they can talk. She can talk, and she can make some facial expressions. Okay, now, here are some examples of sex robots. And strictly speaking, they are dolls, sex dolls, powered by various levels of AR features. And these are Harmony, Henry from Robotics. The Henry, I show you the picture, so I went to visit Henry. And Roxy and Rocky from the True Companions. We have Android Love Dolls from Android Love Doll Companies. And Suzy Software and Harry Hard Drive from Sexport Company. This is not an exhaustive list. The reason I've chosen these examples is because of their various AR features advertised on the website, and also because of their recent appearance on the consultation report entitled Our Sexual Future with Robots. So generally speaking, AR features are, for all of these robots, they can all respond to touch to various degrees. And they have the capability of speech recognition and chatbot conversations. None can walk yet. And Harmony and Roxy were advertised to have the capability to orgasm. And Harmony personality can be adjusted through software. I will show you a bit later. And Roxy also advertised to have two personalities on the website. They said that one is called Frigid Farad, or the another one called Wild Wendy, all from the website. Android Love Dolls, the products were advertised to have more than 50 automated sexual positions. And then the last one, Sexport Company products, they have 4 different kind of sales options with various kind of AR features, including touch activation, remote control, and with increasing price tag. And they have a rental option as well. So, according to FRR report, is the Foundation for Responsible Robotics. Harmony is the one that has the most ambitious or more advanced use of AR software. So I went to visit Harmony last year, as well as her inventors in San Diego, in the state. So I will show you. So there she is. Please don't confuse, the other one is me. And the Harmony is a more sexy one, I guess. She's very sexy, very attractive. And she also feels quite real. So I touched her. Her silicone skin feels almost as real as you touch a real person's skin. And she talks quite real too, as my own experience. Although we had a very simple conversation, like, how do you do, what is your name? But what amazed me was she can move her head quite naturally, quite flexibly, and her lip movement can synchronize, at least make me feel that she can synchronize with her speech. So that was very amazing. And they also showed me how her personality, her appearances can be adjusted through an application on the Android phones. They're called Harmony Personal Companion applications. So you can really play with her different personality in a kind of virtual reality kind of setting before you make your order, if you buy one. And also I talked to the CEO, Matt McMullen, and he is very open-minded, very outward-looking, and he's very proud of telling me his vision for his company. He said his purpose for his company is not to replace human relationships, it's to provide some kind of alternative for those people who have social communication difficulties with people. So that was a very amazing experience and almost perfect to me. But I was thinking at that time, you know very well, our human relationship, our human love, sex is very messy. It's all about those uncontrollability, unpredictability, almost surprises. And sometimes it could be vulnerability or those sweet soundness, I would say, that make us human excited. So I was wondering whether these experiences, these emotions can be also simulated. But I don't know. But this issue has been explored by Kuksenock and Santagati. These are the two authors who contributed a chapter to my book. They explore this issue very in great detail. The chapter is entitled Readable as Intimate Towards a Conceptual Framework for Empirical Interrogation of Software Implementations of Intimacy. So in their chapter, these authors argue, now if you consider our human relationship or human intimacy is a kind of experience of mutual disclosure, mutual vulnerability over a period of time, then our current technology or near future technology is not sufficiently ready to simulate this experience. And also now we are talking about interactions with intelligent machines and in the age of the Internet of Things. And we cannot escape from not talking about privacy, security, personal data protection. And Lugano and colleagues, they explored these issues, these challenges in their chapter and contributed to my book. And they argue that the European General Data Protection Regulations are to protect our personal data as a form of fundamental human rights. But there have been huge challenges in its implementation process. And they use a lot of examples from autonomous driving cars as well as social robots. So I'm just advertising for this book as well as several chapters that's very relevant to this topic. The book will be ready coming this August. Now let me wrap up this first question. Are they ready? Technologically, are they ready to be our intimate partners? So 3 points I want to say. First, it is a myth of so-called strong AI view, I would say, is currently prevalent in the social media, that humanoid robots with social intelligence will be widely available just within the next few years. No, it will not be. It's a myth. Second point I want to make is the current level of intimacy-related behaviors of artificial intelligence is still quite limited. It is still very, very far from what the popular press has portrayed. And third point I want to make is if we consider the current technological development of the sex robots and the complexity of our human relationship and the challenges of data protection issues. So we are still some distance away from a sex robot that can replicate the full experience of a human partner, the intimacy, I would say love and sex. So these are 3 points for the first question. The second question we want to explore is, are we ready to accept the idea and even engage in robot sex? So I will show you some available evidences from survey studies, from experimental studies, as far as I'm aware of, and I want to talk about changes in sexual attitude and talk about how attitude can predict changes in behavior. Okay, now first one is attitude surveys. Would people have sex with a robot? So, in the recent years, a number of studies have been conducted, particularly around the year 2016, in Western cultures. So these studies reviewed very variable numbers with regard to people's positive attitude toward robot sex. So, a whopping 86% in Schultz and Arnold study, 2016 study with 100 US participants. And only about a little over 20% in the Netherlands with 162 Dutch participants. And then in the UK, only 17% in the Nesta Futurist survey with 1,002 UK participants. And this figure actually increased to 26% if a robot looks exactly like a human. I was wondering why these figures are so different. And of course, there are individual differences. And also perhaps the way the questions are framed. They're talking about different things, whether, robots could satisfy satisfy sexual desire, or, sex robots have no negative consequences, or you would like to go on a date with a robot. So slightly different things. Perhaps also lack of rigorous definitions of what constitutes a robot. When people fill in the surveys, in their mind, what constitutes a robot is quite different. So it might be useful, in my opinion, in future studies would be quite useful to consistently use one same measure. So the results gathered from different countries, different cultures can be compared in a much more meaningful way. But anyway, despite these variable numbers from survey studies, experimental studies show some initial evidence that we humans might be physiologically aroused by our artificial partners. So I'm going to talk about 2 studies. Okay, so first study is actually conducted in Germany, and a group of researchers from Duisburg-Essen University. They showed pictures to participants, the pictures of women and the pictures of female-looking robots. And these participants are male, heterosexual participants. They are young, around the age of 25. So the question to them is very easy. Who do you think is more attractive? So answers are very amazing because although they say, yeah, of course, the pictures of women are more attractive. However, when they were performing the affective priming tasks, where they were asked to associate some positive, negative words, for example, warm, cold, enthusiastic, sexy, these kind of words to those pictures, the reaction times were no difference. What does that mean? What means really the whole idea, the whole concept of attractiveness were equally strongly related to the photos, pictures of women as well as to the pictures of female-looking robots. Why? And these authors of this study try to explain these results by arguing both pictures of women and robots displayed unambiguously, explicitly some social cues of being a woman. What is it? For example, they both have breasts. And then those social cues actually activate the deeply rooted perceptual mechanisms and associated responses to those social cues. So verbally and cognitive, they say pictures of women more attractive, but in the cognitive way, bodily reaction perhaps more or less similar. So if we put these two findings from this study and another study that I'm going to talk about, I will talk about it later. So the general idea is very, very initial evidence showing, yeah, we might be aroused, but we are not quite sure at the moment because these are the very initial findings. Now I'm going to talk about a second study. It's actually conducted in the USA. So this study is conducted by Professor Jamie Lee and colleagues when they were in Stanford University. They use a very, very small humanoid robot. This is Now. Some of you might be aware, heard about Now. So they ask participants to touch different body parts of Now, and then they measure skin conductance as an indicator for physiological reactions or for how to say, physiological, responses. Now, these two body parts, one part is called socially less acceptable, for example, thigh or genital areas or buttock area. Socially less accessible. Another part they ask participants to touch is socially more accessible part, like hand part or arm. So what they found was the skin conductance level was higher when participants touch the socially less accessible part, for example, the genital areas, as compared to when participants touch the socially more accessible area, like hand area, indicating we might be physiologically aroused by touching more intimate parts of small humanoid robots. So now I'm trying to put these findings together. It seems quite exciting, as I said, but these findings are very initial findings. These initial findings, as I said, seems to suggest, there might be some kind of emotional ties between us humans and those humanoids, but we have to be careful. These are initial findings. We need a lot of further rigorous testing before any firm conclusions can be made. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit sexual attitude, just a little bit shift before you get too excited. And how to say, I would say in the early years of the 21st century, I would understand, many of you or some of you would still consider this whole ideas of love and sex with robots or intimate relationships with humanoids a very unusual topic, an outlandish topic, or even perverted. But people's sexual attitude, behaviors, or beliefs, they do change. They have been changed. And if you think about it, we take a historical perspective. There have been huge changes in people's attitude toward a lot of sexual practices, almost to all of those sexual practices listed here. For example, homosexuality, masturbation, even oral sex. For some of these practices, at some period in the historical time, have been considered very serious or even capital offenses in some of the most civilized countries in the world. But now they've been being accepted as very normal, can even, considered as something contribute to satisfactory sexual lives. So I believe with the development of science and technology, with our social adaptations to this new technology, and I think we will come to a point that acceptance of intimate relationship with intelligent machines or love and sex with robots will become some form of mainstream expressions of human sexuality. And you will ask me, why are you so confident? I would think because they have already some other changes have been taking place in some other areas. For example, we are now entering the cyber sex era. And the first point I'm going to make is that sexual awarenesses and experiences are happening to our younger generation, young children, at an ever younger age. And also, second point is the fusion of sex and technology, the marriage between sex and technology. And this fusion has created a lot of opportunities for many people, for a lot of people, particularly younger generation, to experiment, new dimensions of sexuality. And nowadays, I think it is not that uncommon that you choose your partner over Tinder, or even socialization on the YouPorn, or engage in sexual interactions in immersive virtual reality. And the term digital, or would I say digital sexuals, or digital sexuality, or digital sexuals are emerging. And these are a group of people whose main sexuality will only come about when they interact with digital technology. So I remember David Levy, some of you might heard of. He's the author of the book called Love and Sex with Robots. He once made this prediction. He said, we humans will be routinely have sex with robots by the year of 2050. And I would say fully acceptance of digital sexuality as some form of mainstream expressions, our human sexuality, will be dependent on two factors. First is the speed of development in artificial intelligence, particularly sexual applications of AI. And the second factor, I would say, is the speed of our social adaptations to these new technologies. And I believe in both cases, the speed will be quite fast. And probably will be faster than you think. And I talked about sexual attitude, and we will have to talk about sexual behavior. Do attitude and behavior correlate? And this is a topic that actually been discussed for quite a long time in social science. And in the area of sexual science, the challenging question is to what extent our sexual attitude can predict trend in our sexual behavior in the future. And in the case of intimate relationships with humanoid robots, I think the challenging questions would be what is the appropriate process to bring about this process? And what are the current challenges, barriers to prevent this process to take place? And what are the likely consequences? What are the potential benefits of this new sexual experience going to bring to us, individuals, and to the society as a whole? I'm very sorry, I don't have answers, actually, no definite answers to almost all of these questions at this stage. But I think there's huge scope for research. I'm aware there are a lot of students here, I was told. There's huge scope for research, particularly at stage, to look at how current sexual attitude can predict the trend in the human sexuality in the future. Okay. Now, are we ready? I'm trying to wrap up the second question. Now, I've shown you some available evidences, and it seems to me or to us that we humans have some level of readiness to engage intimate relationship with the humanoid robots. But these initial findings need to be tested with rigorous methods. And the second point is the fact that we are not ready now does not mean we will not be ready in the future. And with the increasing speed of AI, with our social adaptations to these technologies, I believe we will come to a point that digital sexualities will be accepted as one form of human expressions of human sexuality. And finally, I say research is urgently needed. particularly to explore how sexual attitude can predict future trends in human sexuality. Okay, how am I doing the time? To go. Okay, so I have time to talk about possible clinical implications because this is a topic that actually attracted a lot of attention. And particularly around these two topics, and say for the therapeutic role of a sex robot, and also whether sex robots can be used to deal with societal level issues, can be used as a tool to help reduce the incidences of child sexual abuse. And so far, generally speaking, a lot of ideas being expressed. No empirical evidence so far as I'm aware of, no systematic empirical ideas to support or to refute any of the ideas expressed so far. So I would like to just highlight some of the key debates or central ideas. Okay, so could a sex robot help with sexual healing and therapy? Now, these are the three groups of people being frequently talked about that can potentially benefit from use of a sex robot. So they are those with social emotional blockages, or those elderly people in the care homes, or those with disability. So with the first group, with social and emotional blockages, I mentioned Matt McMullen, that I visited his company. He is one of those examples. He said his purpose for his products is to provide alternative for those people who have social communication difficulty with humans. But also another person is David Levy. David Levy is the person, as I said, the book of Love and Sex with Robots. And he said sex robot would be potentially useful for particular sectors of population, for example, for those he called misfits, shy, or sexually inadequate, or uneducable. Now, this is a direct quote from his book, and it's very interesting. I'm going to read it. So what I'm convinced of is that a robot sex will become the only sexual outlet for a few sectors of the population: the misfits, the very shy, sexually inadequate, and the uneducable. And then, if you read on, I think he's talking about robot sex and sex robot could be potentially useful for people like us as a kind of indulgence or supplements for our regular sex life. So he says for some sectors of population, robot sex will vary between something to be indulged in occasionally when one's partner is away from home on a long trip, for example, to an activity that supplements one's regular sex lives. Perhaps when one's partner is not feeling well or not feeling like sex for some other reason. So it could be useful, potentially beneficial for anybody. Okay, so for elderly people in the care homes who still desire sexual contact, this is a very, very delicate, sensitive topic. So general idea expressed so far is for some people, they believe they could be potentially very helpful for this group of people because they can help manage their depression, make their stay at the care homes more enjoyable. But others think we have to be very careful because they are vulnerable group of people, particularly some could have dementia, they could not make, consent. We have to make sure they can give full consent, or else we will run into the risk of infantilize them or violate their dignity. So very sensitive topic. No empirical data so far to support either views. Finally, for those with disabilities, again, disability is a highly complex issue. Generally speaking, and some people would believe this sex robot would, perhaps for some people with disability, they would prefer the anonymity and the privacy of having a sex robot in their homes as a dignified solution. Others might prefer a human sex partner because they probably would be easy to communicate, they are more sympathetic. Again, no data. So generally speaking, research is needed. particularly to explore how sex robot can, be used for human benefits, particularly to deal with, sexuality-related individual societal level issues. But now I quickly talk about this is highly sensitive topic. Again, this topic is would sex robot to help to reduce incidences of child sexual abuse. So the discussion or the ideas or debates around this topic more or less centering around the possibility of whether a child form sex robot could help pedophiles. It's a very sensitive topic, but generally speaking, the current major disagreement can be described as between the views of satiation and reinforcement. I will explain. So people with satiation view believes, and if we give them a sex robot, or even those potentially with sexual offenders and indication of how to say, we will almost they have disordered desire, or their dark desire to engage with children will be diminished or will be significantly reduced. So they will not have any desire to harm children from the real world. So this is from one side. And another side, for those people with reinforcement view, believes if we give them sex robot, and they will be actually functions as encouraging or further reinforce their illicit sexual practices. So basically the views between whether sex robots can be used to stop or actually further encourage their illicit sexual behaviors. Again, no empirical data to support either views at the moment. So in terms of time, probably I don't have a lot of time talking about one study actually did explore people's views on appropriate use of sex robot. I will quickly go through it because it's very interesting. This is a study conducted by Schultz and Arnold. I mentioned it before. They asked people's views on expected capabilities of sex robot. Now they asked appropriate use of sex robot. So the question for their participants was, would it be appropriate to use sex robots, say, to replace prostitutes, or to, say, for disabled people? And then the rating from 1 to completely inappropriate to 7 completely appropriate. Okay, so I'm not just to go through. So what they found, these are the top 3 most appropriate use for sex robots. To use sex robots to replace prostitutes, for disabled people, to reduce the risk of sexually transmitted diseases. And then the 3 least appropriate use is to maintain a relationship, or for sex offenders, and to practice abstinence. Okay, no comments. These are the results. I also asked people's the views on the appropriate form of sex robots. So the question is, they asked participants in the survey is, should sex robot in the form of, for example, a human child be acceptable? Now, ask participants to rate, same, 1 to completely inappropriate to 7 completely appropriate. So what they found is an adult human form, a fantasy creature, these are top most appropriate form for a sex robot. And the least appropriate form, the 3 least, is an animal form, one's family member, a human child at the bottom. So, also interesting finding from that study is there's a huge gender difference, with men being generally more open, more tolerant regard to appropriate form, appropriate function of the sex robots. So I have to agree with those authors about the reasons for those gender differences. They said the reasons have to go beyond individual differences. We have to go to see the factors perhaps relating to societal level factors. Okay. Now, final point. All I have said is I keep saying no empirical evidence so far. Research is needed. As I said, I want to highlight the importance of using a transdisciplinary scientific approach to study this topic. So I will tell you what I mean, why I think it is important. So a scientific approach, I mean empirical approach that respect observation, experimentation, as well as critical reasoning in understanding human sexuality. We are talking about future of human sexuality, digital sexuality. And these are, I would say, this is an emotional topic. The topic touches the essence of human relationships. And this is also a topic that is unprecedented. I believe a lot of other approaches, for example, religion and philosophy, political institutions would all like to understand this topic by applying their assumptions, their set of procedures. But I believe, from my background, that it is time to set this topic as a serious topic for scientific investigation and encourage scientists or encourage researchers to pursue in this direction. Why? It's not just because of scientific curiosity, because we know very little at this stage about this topic. And we cannot make, evidence-based decisions, evidence-informed decisions, but also it concerns the fact that public debates like we are holding today, future robotics design, and clinical or interventions in the future, and we'll all need evidences from research. So that's why I'm almost raising my voices and to people like you from general public. I would say the importance of this area of work needs to be recognized. Also, I want to say we need a transdisciplinary approach. I mean, all parties involved, psychologists, philosophies, and computer scientists, robotists, atheists, industry professionals, as well as media representatives, all need to work together. I also want to highlight the role of industry professionals, the so-called adult entertainment industry, their role in shaping, advancing social behavioral changes, as well as acting as potential funding bodies, cannot be underestimated. So, how to say, I would really, really like to highlight it is important. Okay, so recently I participated a roundtable discussion organized by DFG, Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft is a German science foundation. The theme is called digital sexuality, and intimate relationships with intelligent machines is part of the topic. So it was a very exciting moment, exciting development for me, for people like me who are interested in the development in this area, that eventually the importance of this area of work has been recognized to some extent. So I'm just going to wrap up very quickly. So are they ready? Not quite, I would say. Are we ready? Almost. You will tell me maybe in the end. Are you ready? Implications huge. Research almost as a matter of urgency. Finally, I do want to highlight here, I want to cite my favorite American sexologist, Ira Rice, What Could Be, because I believe it summarizes very well the essence of the direction of this area of work. So there once was the mythical land of Oz, where everything that could be was, if only we could see from what is to what could be. Thank you. I have some water.
Thank you, Yuefang, Zhou. That was amazing. I'm sure we have a lot of questions. Is there anybody who wants to start in English or German? Gibt es Fragen, die Sie auch gerne auf Deutsch stellen dürfen? Dann bringe ich Ihnen gerne ein Mikro, vielleicht kurzes Handzeichen. Ja.
Hello. What have been the further options of your study where the participants choose mostly adult robots and at least, I think, child robots? There were about 1 to 3 and 7 to 8. Do you remember the left options?
Oh, okay, yes, I do have it. You mean the form? The form of the robots, is that right? You're talking about, what are the other forms? What do you think? You can give me a few. Look like an elderly person. Are you saying they could look like an elderly person? No. Might be an option, yes. Because I'm also, I have 3 empirical studies in Potsdam. They are 2 of the studies I have data. And one of them I do ask people, what do you think, what is appropriate form? Because I wanted to sort of extend that area of work. That's only in the United States. We don't have data in Germany. We don't have data in the UK yet. I worked quite a lot of years in the UK. So I come to Germany as a visiting scientist. So I do wanted to gather data. So, but other options, I can show you if that's there. Let's think. I did prepare. Oh, no. No, these are just appropriate use. So if I remember fantasy figures, from my interviews, people do tell me have not published yet. Okay, you are the only ones. They do tell me if, for equality reasons, sex robot could, in the form of disabled. Yes, some tell me that. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a robot sex, android sex, and a sex toy?
Difference between robot sex, human sex, and a sex toy. Is that right?
I think it was just the difference between robot sex and sex toys.
Android with sex android, sex toy.
First, this question confirmed my, my design. This is one of the questions. Put my questionnaire. I interviewed. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Some water. Water might be better. So this is a question that, one of the questions, 13 questions I ask my participants, how sex robots differ from using of vibrators, using a sex toy. I mean, if you ask me at the moment, I mean, just one person's assumption, but my data is not published yet. But anecdotally, people would think, if you have sex, this is generally speaking, okay, from my understanding, the data so far, if you engage sexual interactions with a sex robot, now, they need permission, or they feel they have the need to tell the partner, have this kind of, how to say, danger of cheating. Okay, if you use a toy or sex dolls, no problem. This is something come out from my data. But I don't know, what do you think?
I think it's no difference.
You think it's no difference?
No, and the second question, there are the robots are really, it's not a question. The robots, there are no really. The sex toys are only toys, and the robots are only toys.
Yeah, at the moment, even Henry cannot walk. Maybe he will not remember my name. Very sexy, even. To some people, it's no difference.
Any other questions? Yeah.
You described that what people expect today from robots or sex robots is that they basically behave as like slaves, right? They obey, they can be manipulated, they can be programmed to one's will. And if I understood you right, you think there's a lot more of potential, and it could be, I don't know how to call it, a creature or an entity with an own will that takes initiatives and so on. And it sounded as if you described the gap between the expectation and the possibility as something that should be closed, as something positive. And I felt like, wow, no, why should this be a gap to be closed? What would then be the difference between a human being with an own will, with sometimes not being ready for sex, for example, or not having time, and the robot or the android or the digital entity?
I think quite a few questions, a few points, isn't it? Let me try to understand it right. First, you ask, sex robots at the moment, at this stage from the survey study, at the moment, people would still consider them more as objects. You think whether eventually, this is a question, whether eventually people would like to consider them more like autonomous being, or they will technologically becomes more, how to say, robotic, more AI, have more consciousness. What is your question? These are two levels. Would people like to consider them, or would technologically there's a potential?
No, my question would be, what is the difference then between the robot and the human being if both are taking initiative, being smart, so on?
I think the question was, would that be a desirable outcome? Because you described it as a gap that could be closed, and I think you're asking, would that be even desirable? That they become even more human-like? Or is that an ethical question?
I'm not sure, maybe in the end.
Okay, I take it that way. I think it would be different, first of all. And for some people, sex robots, use of sex robots could be superior to human partner sex. Or for some stages of your life, sex robot will be superior to your partner. And for others, I would say they will never. Equate to human partner sex or love. Maybe I haven't captured your question. Can you ask me again? Doesn't matter. You try again. Or you are asking whether there's other potentials of sex robots.
I understood that you think, or you said that it is possible, it will be definitely possible to create robots that express feelings, that take initiative, that act as if they have a free will or a will of their own, right?
I said some people would consider those kind of capabilities not very high on their priority. That's what the survey studies indicated. But the things I probably is not answering your question, probably is relevant to other people's interest, is that even they don't have the capability to take initiative. If they behave, showing some kind of behavior that they can love you back or that they can do certain things, but actually they don't have the capacity or the technological, they don't have the consciousness, whatever. And if you feel that that's enough, probably the user experience would be enough for you. It doesn't matter what kind of capabilities for them, what kind of capabilities they have. The user will be happy because the definitions of the qualities of love and sex varies a lot from person to person. That's what I think. So at the moment, even they have a very, very low or level of artificial intelligence, some people is already very happy with their sex toys. What other people would never be happy. That's what I would think.
We had another question there, I think. Yeah.
Hello. So generally AI and robotics are a bit separated, and AI can work on its own without a real robot, and robotics can function completely well without a brain, in this case AI controlling it. Is there a clear separation in your research between AI and robotics, and if yes, why, and if no, again, why?
I can't answer this question. My background is from social science. Actually, at the moment, I don't do robotics per se that actually, I don't understand that much about artificial intelligence. My study is about how humans respond to AI, particularly from the emotional, interaction, effective interaction with robots, and from now particularly set on the sexuality issue, how robots can eventually use for human benefits from the sexuality issue side, and broadly up a little bit the human-robot interaction. Actually, I don't have a lot of knowledge about robotics. I welcome other people to join the team to study with us. I even need programmers when I work with Robot Pepper, when I conduct studies, so.
We have a few questions now. 1, 2 in the back, and 3.
Yes. Do you ask the participants of your studies, of your research, whether they prefer other sexual practices if they have the opportunity to have sex with robots? Then they would prefer with a real human being, if the variety of sexual practices, of sexual desire varies and is maybe broader than in the real life?
I'm not quite sure your question. You mean, did I take?
Yes. I mean, do you ask people, the participants of your research, whether they prefer other sexual practices, other sexual practices than they have in their real life with their real human, human sexual partner?
Yeah, not explicitly, but when we talk, because it's an open question, it's not specific, like what is your other sexual practice, but participants did mention, say for example, I'm bisexual, so if I have a sex robot, say my boyfriend, my girlfriend was something like how to react, so they will hint different things, or they will say, it would be useful if, you try out group sex, or then I will ask, what do you really mean? They will tell me. So not explicitly ask them, but they did give me some hint how openly they have sort of experienced or knowledge about the sexual practices, things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, we had one question in the back.
Yes, so there are very different kind of robots, like service robots and carrying, cleaning robots and so on. Do you have any opinions or maybe research if they would merge, like we now really separate these things, sex robots and, I don't know, cleaning robots, but if they eventually are there, would they combine? Or would you
like
think
one?
they would never combine because it's scary?
This is called a human, isn't it? You do everything. Human does everything. This reminds me a story I heard. They want to develop a sex robot. Eventually they realized, what about to ask a sex robot also make me a cup of coffee? We just want more and more. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you. I feel somehow that there is a growing problem in social interaction as well in sexuality in our society, especially in Western societies, and that might be a driver for the robot production or the development of AI. Mm-hmm. And of course, it makes me a little bit sad. I'm skeptic about this development, but on the other hand, I see another growing industry is the gaming industry, and you see there's a lot of AI developed in that. And for some reason, there's also big skepticism because it's a big development of, for example, ego shooter games for amusement. But on the other hand, there's an educational effect possible. And now I try to combine it or ask the question, is there some research on the educational effect of those machines to have a better social interaction, because this seems to be endangered in this society?
It's an excellent question. I would like to answer that. Social, educational, really, you have a very good wish that thinking about how robots eventually could really have a positive influence on our humanity in general, isn't it? Well, all I can say, for example, this coming workshop I'm organizing this November in Potsdam, we look at robots, first social robots used in education. And from a basic research point of view, how students, pupils can be better motivated. Is it possible to be better motivated using an intelligent tutoring system, and as compared to using a human teacher? This is one way that I'm co-organizing. And we also look at developmental robotics at the moment from the basic understanding how robots eventually could learn even some common sense. I mean, this is a huge, big topic, and there is no common sense at the moment for people even. I guess some people from robotics at the moment, I understand that so far there's no general intelligence yet. And there's a care robots, and then I recently attended a conference in Berlin talking about how to say Fliegerroboter, and that's German, and when we are hopeless, and whether the care robots will come to help us. And talking about robots should, at the one side, to how to say, reduce human workload, at the same time should be also collaborate together, working together with human beings. I don't know. Generally speaking, again, excellent question. I don't know how to answer this question. Yeah, just to make me think what I've done from the different areas. And this is a question people, general public, are interested.
Okay, thank you. There was a question here. Okay. Anyone else has an urgent question? Yeah, okay.
Hello. So as far as I understand, sex robots are made to satisfy a human need, a sexual need that humans experience. I'm wondering if it's always good to satisfy every need that a human has, because if something is made so available for humans, then it might not fulfill them anymore. And I'm wondering if that will eventually bring them the ultimate happiness, if humans can always have sex anytime they want.
First, sex robots, post-sex robots, actually robotics, they use companion robots. In sexuality term, I use the term, the general public point of view is quite narrow and defined. There's also, I wanted to include the attachment dimension. Although sex robots, they have the capability of engage sexual, interaction with a human being if you want to, but I think a lot of people, they would choose to use it as a companion, because in sexuality dimension, there's a dimension of emotional bonding. So let's put sexual interaction as well as emotional bonding. Let's put together sex robots. That's what I mean, intimacy. Then your question is if, how to say, they can satisfy you whenever, wherever, whether we will not be happy anymore, because it's like instant, it's too available. That's what I worry as well, because somebody initially, when I started to pursue this direction, they said, you will lose the surprise, human love and sex, where the surprise comes from. So that's why some love the personality. They're trying to satisfy this kind of need, our human needs. They have the personality can be adjusted. They can adjust it not to obey you or become some kind of frigid, whatever they say. But I think it's still, we humans are controlling it. And well, let's see.
Okay, I'm taking a last question. Okay.
So you were asking the question if we are ready to accept sex robots. Did you also conduct research on if we are ready to accept the idea of a sex robot becoming a part of our relationship? Mm-hmm. So is our idea currently if our partner engages with a sex robot?
Okay, again, my data is not published yet. Okay, I did ask people. One thing relating to the one is I did ask whether it constitutes as cheating. Okay, and to what extent you would like to use sex robots in your relationship? That is relevant to your question. And in terms of cheating, that's very interesting. They would say, difficult to say, because my participants, generally speaking, from Brandenburg, close to the University of Potsdam, although they quite a lot of students, but they are quite a lot of mature students. They could be from different cultures. They are visiting scientists like me as well. I recruit them as my participants. They say, if I use it, maybe it's okay. But if my partner or my husband, wife use it, could be not okay. Okay. And they say, there is also issue of when to use it. Mm-hmm. If my partner's away, if it is a vibrator, or just a doll, I can just put it away in the drawer or out of my sight, out of my mind. But a robot is some size. It occupies some space. So it's quite different from what you think that you can forget about it. So they put some psychological challenges on their mind, on their relationship. So that's kind of issue talking about it. And also practical issues of cleaning, they said, and whether a robot will clean itself, and charging, these different kind of issues all top up, and the issue of danger, whether there's some kind of harms done, and who you are going to sue, and it's a product or you take response because you want to engage. So different kind of issues come. I don't know how to answer your question, but different sorts of things might be emerging. But I wanted to interview a little more people, but general public interview I just finished. But next stage is to look at people from different kind of group, from experts who work in ethics, work in robotics, working people like me, understanding social response to human-robot interaction, this group of experts. Then also interview people who would see them as potential users, like identify people who are disabled, maybe potential users, or elderly people. So different stages. And I haven't gone into next 2 stages yet, so the view at the moment is still quite limited and takes some time. Hopefully in a couple of years I will have really my data. It's my study. At the moment it's my assumptions, other people's thoughts, and limited evidences, but people's interests are there. So I'm very sorry, I cannot really answer a lot of questions.
Before we wrap it up, one question from me about robot rights. Like, if the robot is a person that has, or will be a person in the future, a legal person, like, what is she called? Sophia, that has citizenship in Saudi Arabia, do we need to talk about consent? And do we need to talk about what is violation to a robot? Does a robot need to give consent, like a person? What if these machines develop consciousness? All that, do we need lawyers to work on ethicists, as you said?
I think it comes back even to what we humans consider what is sex, what is love and sex. Do you believe that sex, love and sex intimacy is two autonomous beings? They really should be responsible for their act. I think at the moment we do. So in a way, if they, humans, or machines have the rights, or they've developed into autonomous beings, I think we humans, do you want to have sex at a time to enjoy that kind of level of sex, love sex, with something you treat as an object? Somebody might still do. Others, I believe a lot of people don't want to. They wanted to give the opportunity, the other part, to say no. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you. We would like to ask you as well to say yes or no, if you would be so kind. Ich wechsle mal wieder ins Deutsche. Wir haben unsere Evaluationskarten da draußen liegen. Vielleicht haben Sie schon die Feedbackkarten gesehen. Ansonsten liegen noch welche draußen. Normalerweise versuchen wir darüber herauszufinden, wer unser Publikum ist, wer zu uns kommt und wer vielleicht auch noch nicht kommt. In diesem Fall hat sich Yuefang gewünscht, dass Sie auch ein Plus oder Minus irgendwo auf diese Karte malen, um zu sagen, wären Sie bereit oder nicht, eine Art von Beziehung mit einem Humanoid auszuprobieren oder sexuelle Beziehung. You would like to get some data on that, wouldn't you? Okay.
You can give me the hand so I can look at it. If they allow.
No. We are going to note it down on the cards with a plus or a minus. Okay. So I think we are at the end of our evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Zhou, for this very insightful and very entertaining talk.
Thank you.
And have a nice evening and see you soon.
Yeah.